Juan Zamora never had a chance to grow up as a skeptic when it came to the paranormal. It was in his home from his earliest memories, but as he grew older, the activity became more aggressive and more overt until the night he woke up with a ghost attacking him. Zamora, 30, was born and raised in a small oil-filled town of Eunice. Before he was born, his parents bought a dilapidated little 2-bedroom shack on Continental Road and poured their sweat and tears into making it a home. It was almost rotted out on the outside. No paint, nothing, no walls. Years later, Juan would meet a co-worker who lived in the area as a child, and while 30 years Juan's senior, the person said the home was empty even when he was a child. He said there were some things in there back then that looked like someone might have been squatting there, Juan said, but he said no one could remember when or who had ever lived there. It served as a pretty good house for the Zamora family, as houses go, but their uninvited roommates made any feelings of home hard to come by. My mom offered to sell it to me a few years ago, Zamora said. I told her no. There's no way I want to live in that house and deal with it. Juan's earliest memories in the home are those of unseen eyes on him. He just never felt at ease in what should have been his heaven away from the world. We had this hallway, and ever since I can remember, it always felt like someone was watching you from down the hallway, he said. It was like you could just tell they were peeking around the corner watching you. Juan said the house seemed to have a problem with men. He, his brother, and his father all got odd feelings from the hallway, but his mother and his sister never had any problems in the home. Then came the visual activity. We would see shadows outside the house, he said. A shadow would go past the window and we'd run outside and there wouldn't be anyone around. The home sat on a 2-acre lot removed from the neighbors, and Juan said no one could run and hide before they got outside. What was perhaps the creepiest aspect of the shadow was it was always appeared to be in the form of a man wearing a big top hat. About high school was when it really took off for me, Juan said. One night I had an episode of sleep paralysis and I woke up and there was this shadow in the corner of my bedroom. It was probably the scariest thing I've ever had happen in my life. Juan woke to the uneasy feeling of being watched. He looked across the dark room, and in the corner a black mass, even darker than the night itself, hovered. Juan tried to move or scream for help, but found himself paralyzed, and suddenly the shadow was atop of him, choking the life out of him. It was just this pressure on my throat, and I was screaming, trying to scream for my mom, but I couldn't, and I couldn't move. For what seemed like 10 minutes, Juan battled to free himself from his ghostly attacker. Suddenly, he found himself able to move and the shadow gone. He ran to his mother's room in tears. I asked her why she didn't come help me. I was screaming. She said she never heard the scream and it was probably just a dream. But Juan knew it wasn't a dream. He could still feel the icy grip that had pressed against his throat as the blood throbbed in his veins. After that, sleep was a precious commodity for Juan, and what should have been a peaceful feeling of going to sleep just meant the start of his nightly terror-filled watch. Each night he'd lie in bed, eyes darting about the room for the slightest movement, only to eventually drift off from exhaustion in the wee hours of the morning. Whatever attacked Juan had played its hand through, and eventually sleep became easier as the long watches grew shorter with each passing night of inactivity. Then came senior prom, and the story of the last house on the left took a twist for Juan. Some of my friends came by after prom and we were sitting around the living room talking. It got late and they went to leave, and as they were pulling out of the drive, I closed and locked the front door when I heard a woman's voice ask, "Are they gone?" Startled, Juan ran through the house only to find both his mother and sister sound asleep in their beds. Activity continued at the home until Juan graduated and left home, and then years later he and his wife moved into the home for a time, only for the activity to reassert itself in life. She would have things happen to her and she would say, "Juan is not here, come back later," and it would stop, he said. One night, as the couple was climbing into bed, a sound from the kitchen drew Juan's attention. In the middle of the kitchen floor sat a cup he figured had slipped from the drain rack and fell. Replacing it, he headed back to bed, but just as he started to climb in, another sound echoed down the hallway. I go look, and there is a piece of candy in the hallway that had been on the coffee table in the living room. He said, "I guess it threw it after me." At the time, the couple rented out an RV on the property, and the tenant would come and complain about the sounds of footsteps in the RV at night as she tried to sleep. Juan and his wife moved away from the home 5 years ago, and the most recent owner was reluctant to talk about ghosts in the home on record. However, as we spoke about Juan's experiences, memories of things that happened in the home over the years began to spring up. As a Christian, the owner said she didn't give much thought to the hauntings, but then began to recall her husband spoke of an eerie feeling of being watched, and her daughter used to have nightmares regularly. "I blessed the home and put crosses over every door when we moved in," she said. "I had to put 4 crosses in my daughter's room. She used to wake up at night with terrible nightmares, and the cross over her door would be on the floor, broken. Finally, a friend gave the owner a steel cross, and the owner said she nailed it to the wall above her daughter's bedroom door. Now that I think of it, it has never broken, and she stopped having nightmares right after that," she said. She said she did hear a story some years ago about a person who committed suicide down the road from the house by hanging. She said she's moving out soon, but some members of her family are moving in, and she began to wonder what they might experience living in the last house on the left.